Hello! So today I'm going to be talking about the 2005 Women's Prize winning novel On Beauty by Zadie Smith. Now you're not going to believe this, but until this book I hadn't read a single page of a Zadie Smith novel. What, you've never read White Teeth and you call yourself a reader? I know, but here's the thing. At that time when White Teeth was released, I was reading nothing but horrors. It was quite a long stretch in which I only read horror novels with the occasional bit of fantasy, very little literary fiction back in those days. And also at that time, White Teeth, especially where I was in the world, just sort of blew up. I couldn't go anywhere without seeing the cover for White Teeth sort of like thrown in my face. It was just everywhere. And because I was young and I was a dickhead, I had that mentality in which I didn't want to read something that was so popular, because if something being so popular must mean it wasn't very good. That was the kind of mindset I had back then. So recently, or what was it, a few months ago, when I think The Fraud was released, I was seeing a lot of reviews for it, and I was in a charity shop and I saw On Beauty in that charity shop in pretty damn good condition for around 20-30p. So I was a bit like, I don't know, I think I just remembered The Fraud, and I thought to myself, I need to get over this not reading Zadie Smith thing. It was something that I decided when I was very young, based on very little evidence. Everything I've read about Zadie Smith is that her writing is really, really good. So I don't know why it's been so long since I picked anything up. But anywho, it was 30p. I picked this up. I know I didn't start with White Teeth, but because this was so cheap, I was just like, I'll give this a go. However, it went on my shelf and it was there for quite some time, quite a few months. And yeah, last week, I don't know why, I was just looking over my shelf. I saw it and I was like, right, it's time. It's time to read my first ever Zadie Smith novel. So what's this book about? It's about beauty and identity and intercultural dynamics. It's primarily set in the academic realm of New England and the cosmopolitan landscape of London. It chronicles the intersecting lives of the erudite Belsey family, led by liberal scholar Howard Belsey. There's his wife Kiki and their children Jerome, Zora and Levi. Howard is from England and moved over to America, and his wife Kiki is from the deep south of America. And some of the sort of intercultural clashes that happen are between the way they were raised, the different cultures that are taking place within the family unit. The Belsey family's world collides with that of the affluent Kipps family, comprising of the very conservative and religious Monty Kipps, a renowned English intellectual, his wife Carleen, a charismatic former model, and their children Victoria and Michael. Intense intellectual debates and ideological clashes underscore the narrative between the Belseys and the Kipps as they explore and battle out their differences. The characters grapple with the intricacies of love, relationships, and existential fulfillment, with particular focus on the different paths pursued by each of the Belsey and Kipps children. Employing a healthy amount of wit and satire, Smith is exploring the intricacies of human relationships, highlighting the complexities between marriage, friendship, and family bonds. Themes of race, socioeconomic status, and educational privilege are all explored in depth. It's a 450-page character study novel with a few plot twists thrown in there to keep things interesting. So what did I like? And what didn't I like? What I liked. I really enjoyed the rich character development. We spend a lot of time with these characters, their complexities, how they're built, the dynamics, the relationships, the way they act with each other. That's what this book is all about. And I feel the way that it builds and layers with each character is done incredibly well. The storytelling is really immersive. It actually took me barely any time at all for Smith to be able to sort of weave me into the world of the Belsey family. Not just a family unit, but the academic world that Howard and some of his children are within. Yeah, I just very quickly I was in and I was like, well played, Smith. You got me hooked and in and connected to this family in very little time at all. I really loved how packed this novel is with thought-provoking themes. Some of them are quite subtle and some of them are really thrown in your face, but they are all weaved into this sort of journey with the family really, really well. The novel is also packed with so much humour and wit constantly. I don't know, I always think it depends on the reader and what you might find funny, but I found this novel hilarious all the way through. I think it very much is a satire, but I can totally see people reading this and not sort of picking up on that. But yeah, for my tastes, I found it very funny. Smith's prose is very lyrical, but I absolutely loved it. I think Smith has managed to nail this very accessible yet complex and very intricate writing style. What she's doing might feel very easy to read, but is actually incredibly tricky to do. I thought her writing was the real standout for me, especially the ability to sort of wrap me up in the world and the sort of the descriptions and the way she brings to life the world, what she chooses to include and what she chooses not to include. I don't know. Yeah, the highlight for me was her writing. I can see why she is so popular, because it is so accessible, but yet there's something going on. There's real sort of like complexity and heart and thought gone into every single sentence. Yeah, writing, fantastic. And jumping off of the back of that, I thought the dialogue was excellent. A lot of the humour comes out of the sort of passages of dialogue we have, the arguments and the little tantrums between sort of the Belsey family's children or the Kipps family together. Just those dynamics and the little sort of arguments and things that came about were very funny, and I thought the dialogue was written brilliantly. And finally, and this is playing into my wheelhouse because I teach at a university, but I really enjoyed the exploration of academic life, the sort of the politics, the rivalries, the arguments, the intellectual debates that take place throughout this novel. I personally loved. I can see some people feeling like maybe it bogs down the novel a little bit and maybe a little bit too much time might be spent on that, but because it is something I live in, it is my world. Yeah, I just really enjoyed that aspect. What didn't I like? So as quickly as I was able to get sucked into the world of this novel, and as much as I absolutely adore Zadie Smith's writing, I will say that the pacing felt very uneven. Some sections just dragged on for way too long, way more than was necessary, and other sections that I wanted to invest a little bit more in were just quickly whipped away and felt very rushed. So for me personally, the pacing was a little bit all over the shop with this one. Now, I don't know if it's just me or the fact that this novel is approaching 20 years old, but I found the characters incredibly stereotypical. Now, I know in order for the satire to work, you need to have a somewhat stereotypical character. It's just going to enhance that humour a little bit when we know exactly the archetype we're playing around with. However, I just wanted them to be a little bit more nuanced. In your head, you can imagine kind of like each dynamic, especially of the Belsey children. They're just so in their lane with their kind of attitude and who they are as a person. You can almost predict what they're going to do. You can sort of predict how they're going to think about each thing because there's no nuance there. They're just sort of like painted as this sort of archetypal character. I don't want to go too into details for spoilers, but yeah, and I just felt like that was a bit of a shame. I think the satire could have still been achieved, even with the characters being just a little bit more nuanced. So that was a big one for me. I was a bit like, yeah, these characters just, yeah, they just don't feel that I don't know what the word is, because they richly develop, they do develop, but just who they are as people and the decisions they make and the depth to them just felt a bit obvious. My next dislike plays very much into the kind of pacing issues I was talking about. The plot. It doesn't have great focus. It sort of meanders, like shifts happen, but there's no kind of like, yeah, it doesn't feel like it's that tightly integrated. Now, I like the fact that the novel goes off on massive tangents and we just spend time with these characters going off on these tangents. Yet there are very clear twists and plot devices taking place within this novel, but there was no cohesion to them. They just felt a little bit all over the shop. Like, oh, I could just throw that in at any moment now. And I don't know, I was just a little bit like, I just would have liked it to have been a little bit more focused. I think it could have still kept the heart of it, the time we spend with the characters, and just, yeah, been plotted out a little bit better. I don't know, it just, yeah, didn't quite work for me. Another dislike, and it very much also plays into the other dislikes that I've mentioned, is that there are twists in this novel that I didn't see coming. Sort of little plot twists that took me by surprise. But there are a lot of twists or interactions or things that happen that are incredibly well telegraphed. Like, most readers will be able to spot them very early on. And then when they happen quite a lot later on, there's no impact there because we've been predicting it for a long time because it was very obvious. I don't know, I just felt like, yeah, there was a lot of things that happened in this novel, and I think it was aiming to try and sort of like shock us a little bit, or sort of like hit us emotionally, but it had absolute zero effect, because it's just very obvious that thing is going to happen. And my final dislike, and probably my biggest dislike, because there are things this novel does so well. The time it spends with its characters, the way it brings the characters to life. This is definitely a novel about the Belsey family. However, the Kipps family, the two children, we get a fair amount of time with Victoria. She becomes quite crucial to the plot and the things that are happening. But the other child, Michael, and I think it's Michael, and his fiancée, you get so little time with them. Yet they do come in a few crucial moments. And I just felt to myself, why are we getting so much time with these other characters? This is very much a novel about these two families. We get time, obviously we spend a lot more time with the Belzy family, but we do get a good amount of connection to each member of the Kipps family. Except really Michael, and even Victoria could have been bolstered up a little bit, but Michael and his fiancée, we get absolutely nothing and no resolution or anything. And it just felt like a massive ball had been dropped, because I was then constantly so intrigued about, well, what about these characters? When am I going to get my chapter? When am I going to get my time with these characters? And it never came. And that was my biggest issue. It really let the novel down, because everything up until that point, all the meandering, all the kind of the imbalance of the plot, I'm able to accept, because this novel is a character study and it is allowing me my time to just sort of spend with those characters. But then when it doesn't even allow the time to spend any time with those characters, I was just a bit like, what? Why? I don't get it. What? Yeah. So for me, yeah, that really damaged the book. But that's it for my dislikes. Overall, I thought this book was very good. The writing is absolutely fantastic. I found it incredibly funny, and I thought the sort of layering and build and character development was excellent. It's just let down by its kind of pacing issues, its plot that sort of is quite unfocused, and also some of the characters getting very little time felt like a very odd choice, and I was a bit confused by it, especially as the book is already 450 pages long. It could have been an extra 500 pages long, and you know, it would have been fine because we were just used to the rhythm and the style of the novel. So yeah, overall it's a mixed bag for me, but I'm going to go very good with a kind of 3.5 out of 5 stars. I will tell you this, it's done the job. Everybody, I am going to read White Teeth. I think Zadie Smith's writing is excellent, and I think I'm probably going to enjoy, at the very least, enjoy everything she does, because, yeah, she seems to have just I don't know, it's just something about the writing, incredibly accessible, but also just really lyrical and beautiful. So, yeah. Anyway, have you read this novel? And if so, what did you think about it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Please let me know in the comments below. What are some of your favourite Zadie Smith novels? And if you have read most of her novels, then by all means, please give me your sort of ranking in the comments. I would love to know, just so I have an idea of which one I should maybe pick up next. All right. Thanks very much for watching, everybody. I hope you are all well and you're enjoying whatever you might be reading, and I'll see you all on the next one.